What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to some Dungeon Defenders Awakened. I'm here on my alt account, and I just finished up the campaign. So what do? Well, you jump right to Insane mode, and you get Ancient Mines Survival unlocked on Insane difficulty. Now, that means you will have to run it on Insane Campaign once, which isn't really too tough of an issue after finishing the main campaign. And this is a look at my stats that I'm going into my very first ever Insane Survival with. Now, as usual, the objective here is to make it to wave 15. If you make it to wave 15, you're gonna get that rock pet. This pet is gonna be just a huge boost in stats for any builder hero, and just in getting there, you're gonna collect a massive amount of other gear that's going to be upgrades for you all the way around. So getting things set up just for wave 1, I take a couple of the lanes and put down a large 5 DU Proton Beam X, so 10 DU per lane, and I don't quite have enough to finish the last lane, but I just make sure for wave 1 that I'm just going to burn those mobs down. So I get the 2 big X's in, and then over on this lane, I'm just going to throw 1 beam in, but I want to set it up getting it ready for the next wave. Now, wave 1, of course, is kind of trivial. It's just all about burning through the packs. And, of course, I'm using that paintball gun from the Act 3 Rift mode on hard mode, which, going into the first waves in Insane Survival, is absolutely beast of a weapon. So it's just going to shred everything there. You could actually get away with building almost nothing and just burning the mobs yourself, as wave 1, of course, is just quite trivial. So just need to wait for these baddies to all come out, and then we will start working our way through on the rest of the build. Now, doing these spawn camp builds like this can be a little bit grindy or slow feeling in the very beginning, because if you're spawn camping them, you're killing the mobs super quick, and you really notice those large gaps in between the packs coming out. Now, after we can get through our very first wave, gonna get the rest of our protons set up. Now, in this situation, we're gonna go with the 2 big 5 DU proton beams in an X formation on each of the lanes. Additionally, we're going to get in some Squire spike blockades. So we are using walls on this one. We're gonna have ogres, and those ogres are going to need something there to give them a bit of a distraction while me or my defenses can get the job done against those ogres. There are quite a few ranged mobs in survival, of course, lots of archers, so I'm going to go ahead and put a reflect beam directly in front of those spike blockades to reflect some of that damage and save the spike blockades from having to take so much. Now, of course, the 5 DU Proton Beam can get out to the range of the Insane Mode archers. However, if your placement isn't perfect, your archers can find a place to still fire on that wall. So the Reflect Beam gives you a little bit of a cushion up front prior to getting to that point. Now, after we get our Spike Blockade and our Reflect Beam down on each and every lane, it's not going to leave a whole lot of mana left for getting through the rest of this initial build time. So I am going to want to add buff beams to the mix as well, and I won't be able to get them all built out, but I will be able to get 2 of the 3 buff beams down right now at this point. Now, placing the buff beams in a position where they're buffing everything there, basically everything on the map when this build is finished will be hit by one of those overclock beams, with the exception of those reflects. The reflects, I didn't really bother with it, as you can just get pretty sweet coverage on that wall and on your auras, which will be upcoming, just from placing that buff beam directly through the spike blockade like that. So another easy burner wave pretty much, and now we have even more defenses down, which makes it even more trivial than wave 1. However, you gotta go through the steps and get all the juice before you can get the entire build laid out. Once again, burning through packs is just an absolute trivial thing with that paintball gun in these early waves. We're not really going to get challenged by any single mob until we get to ogre stage. Of course, no ogres in these super early waves. So, moving right along, it's time to build it out a little bit more. We're going to go with an Ensnare Aura, and an electric aura on each of the lanes. So we've got two proton beams, one spike blockade, overclock or buff beam, and then our aura stack going on every lane that's buffed, and then the reflect beams in just for a little protection there. So we want to go ahead and get the exact same setup on every lane. So we want those ensnare auras, electric auras going here. We'll go ahead and drop the exact same thing over here, but remember we also need to get that buff beam in as well on this lane. Once we're all set here, we're going to end up having 2 DU left over. So we got our ensnare and our electric aura in, we've got the 2 DU left over, and what I decided to do for this one is just take that 2 DU and add in a really short 2 DU proton beam right at the wall over on this lane, and really the only time that proton beam is going to do anything is if it's an ogre beating against the wall. But it does give one more damage trigger against any ogres that might be built up. That allows me to make this my strong lane, and I can basically just pay attention to the other lanes and not worry about this one too much. Now this build did surprisingly well. It got me to wave 14, I got myself an Insane Mode rock pet, and it actually came out quite usable. Not the best rock out there in the world, but you know, it's my first one from Insane Mode, and I will take it, no doubt about it. Now, after getting all of that loot, I decided let's push it a little further and see how far we can make it. Surprisingly, I was kind of pleasantly surprised. I made it to wave 21 on my very first ever insane survival attempt. So this is really, really good. I was able to make it this far, get a bunch of XP, and collect a bunch of loot, and really that's what it's all about. So my goal here, of course, was just to make it to wave 15, but by pushing forward on to wave 25, I was then able to really collect a ton of loot. Now, doing your first insane survival, you know, completing it ideally, but at a minimum, pushing as far through insane survival as you can, the further you make it in insane survival, the better off you are going to be in the loot department, as the best loot comes in the later waves. Now, as you see here, I had split ogres, which is normally kind of ideal, but I didn't handle those Dark Elf warriors. They ended up chasing me around the map, and I got a little bit caught off guard with the Dark Elf warriors when I popped over to this side to engage this ogre. So they're coming in hot, they get a few shots in from behind. I'm able to get over the ogre's biscuit without getting wrecked, but then dive directly into a kobold in the pack. Now, I was playing on hardcore, so this did not end very well, and was the end of my very first ever insane survival run. So I made it to wave 21, I'm pretty stoked about that. We got a rock pet, which was the initial goal overall. However, let's pop out of here and take a peek at the massive, and I do mean massive, amount of loot. Now, I had my loot filter set for blues or better, and holy crap, page after page after page after page of just loot and loot and loot. A lot of legendary loot, stuff I can't even equip yet, so I've got some stuff waiting for me to hit level 60. And just a huge amount of power upgrade with having this much loot to play around with now on all of my heroes. So that will do it for now, y'all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see ya next time around. Take it easy.